Welcome to this tutorial on language, style, and ethics in academic medical writing, a critical skill set for anyone working in healthcare, pharmaceuticals, or medical research. Whether you're drafting a clinical study report, preparing a journal submission, or creating medical training materials, your writing reflects not only your expertise, but also your organization's credibility. Poorly structured or ethically questionable writing can undermine trust, delay approvals, and even impact patient safety. This tutorial is designed to help you elevate your skills and produce content that meets the highest scientific and regulatory standards. We will explore this topic in two main sections. The first section, Language and Style in Academic Writing, focuses on mastering clarity, precision, and professionalism. We'll examine how to balance technical detail with accessibility, use active and passive voice effectively, and maintain a neutral, evidence-based tone. We'll also highlight common pitfalls in scientific writing and share best practices for improving readability and impact. The second section, Ethical Academic Writing, delves into integrity and compliance, cornerstones of medical communication. We'll discuss authorship transparency, plagiarism avoidance, handling conflicts of interest, and regulatory obligations that every medical writer should understand. Real-world examples will illustrate how ethical missteps can harm credibility, while best practices will guide you in building trust with peers, regulators, and the wider scientific community. By the end of this tutorial, you'll have the tools to write with confidence, clarity, and integrity, skills that will serve you whether you're publishing groundbreaking research, supporting medical affairs initiatives, or contributing to industry innovation. So, when it comes to writing style in healthcare and pharma, precision is everything. Unlike general content, medical writing often deals with life-saving data, regulatory documentation, and communications that shape patient care decisions. This means every word matters. Medical writers must maintain clarity in medical writing, ensuring that even the most complex data can be interpreted without confusion. Whether you are preparing a clinical trial report, an abstract for a scientific journal, or a slide deck for healthcare professionals, clarity ensures that your message is not only understood but trusted. Equally important is balancing technical detail and accessibility. Different stakeholders, regulators, clinicians, payers, and patients will require varying levels of technical depth. Skilled medical writers know how to shift gears, presenting sophisticated science in a way that is still approachable without oversimplifying or compromising accuracy. Consistency in terminology and structure is another hallmark of professional medical writing. Using standardized terms, such as those from MedDARA or ICH guidelines, ensures accuracy and avoids misinterpretation. At the same time, strong medical writers always consider their audience, recognizing that the tone and format of a regulatory submission differ significantly from an internal training document. By tailoring style to context, you demonstrate professionalism and strengthen trust in your communication. The goal is to create documents that not only meet regulatory and scientific standards, but also convey information with authority, making it easier for your audience to make informed decisions. One of the most debated aspects of scientific writing is whether to use active or passive voice. Traditionally, academic and medical writing leaned heavily on passive constructions, such as the study was conducted or the data were analyzed, to focus attention on the process rather than the researcher. This style reinforces objectivity, which is crucial in scientific communication. However, overuse of the passive voice can make writing dry, wordy, and difficult to follow. Modern medical communication encourages active voice in many contexts because it makes sentences clearer and more engaging. For example, saying, "Researchers analyze the data," is more direct and easier to read than the data were analyzed. Active voice works well in sections that describe methods, results interpretation, or recommendations, as it enhances clarity and flow. That said, there are times when passive voice is appropriate, particularly when emphasizing the data or process over the researcher. For example, in regulatory submissions, stating, "The protocol was approved by the Ethics Committee," maintains neutrality and focuses on the action rather than who performed it. The key is to balance clarity and professionalism. Overly rigid adherence to passive voice can alienate readers, while excessive active voice can make writing sound informal. Good medical writers use a strategic mix: active voice for clarity and passive voice for objectivity. This balance helps improve readability while maintaining the authority expected in scientific literature. Now let's talk about the tone and neutrality, because in medical writing, these are essential. Your words should project professionalism, objectivity, and respect for evidence. Unlike marketing or editorial writing, academic and medical documents are not about persuasion. They are about delivering information that is scientifically valid and trustworthy. This requires an objective, evidence-based language that avoids unnecessary emotion or opinion. Instead of saying the drug was highly effective, a more neutral statement would be, "The study results demonstrated a statistically significant improvement." Another critical aspect of neutrality is avoiding bias. This applies to how results are interpreted and reported. Writers should carefully choose words to reflect findings without overstating conclusions. For example, replacing phrases like "proved" with "suggested" or "was associated with" ensures scientific caution and protects credibility. Precision in wording also reinforces neutrality. Avoid ambiguous or overly assertive terms unless the data strongly support them. The best medical writing uses cautious, precise language such as "may indicate," "is consistent with," or "was observed." This style demonstrates scientific rigor while helping the audience interpret findings responsibly. Finally, remember that medical communication often reaches diverse audiences: regulatory authorities, healthcare providers, and even patients. Your tone must remain professional and consistent regardless of the audience. By maintaining neutrality, you build trust, enhance credibility, and position your writing as a reliable resource in healthcare decision-making. But as you know, even experienced professionals fall into common pitfalls in medical writing. One of the most frequent errors is overusing jargon. While scientific terminology is necessary, excessive jargon creates unnecessary barriers for readers, especially when communicating with mixed audiences like payers or patient advocacy groups. Simplifying language without compromising accuracy is a skill that distinguishes excellent writers. Another challenge is structural clarity. Scientific writing often follows rigid guidelines like consort or ICH structures, but even within these frameworks, poorly organized sentences or headings can make a report difficult to navigate. Using clear subheadings, consistent tables, and structured summaries helps readers absorb information faster. Ambiguity in presenting data is also a common trap. For instance, describing trial outcomes without specifying confidence intervals, sample sizes, or comparator details can lead to misinterpretation. Writers should prioritize transparency, ensuring every figure or claim is supported by proper data. Finally, many writers neglect audience needs. A regulatory reviewer reads differently than a journal editor, and neither reads like a patient advocate. When writers fail to adapt content to the audience, their work loses impact. Tailoring documents for each stakeholder is not just good practice, it's a sign of professionalism. Avoiding these pitfalls requires attention to detail and empathy for your readers. Writing should guide the reader effortlessly through complex data, leaving no room for confusion or misinterpretation. By mastering this, you elevate your work beyond simple compliance and become a true communicator of science. Let's wrap up with best practices that ensure your writing stands out. Start with strong planning and structure. Before writing, outline your objectives, key messages, and intended audience. This roadmap prevents redundancy and keeps your content focused. Next, rely on standardized guidelines. Regulatory documents should align with ICH, CONSORT, or FDA standards. Manuscripts for journals should follow formatting guidelines like AMA or Vancouver style. Style guides ensure consistency in headings, references, and terminology, reducing errors and improving efficiency. Always prioritize clarity and accuracy over style. While elegant language is nice, clarity is critical. Avoid unnecessary complexity. Short, precise sentences often carry more weight than long, complicated ones. A busy clinician or regulatory reviewer should be able to understand your message quickly. Finally, don't underestimate the power of feedback and revision. Even experienced writers miss details, so peer review is invaluable. Editing for grammar, formatting, and tone ensures professionalism, while external feedback improves content quality. Professional medical writing is not just a technical skill, it's a strategic tool. Whether drafting a clinical trial report, a health economics manuscript, or training material for your medical team, your writing reflects your organization's credibility. By mastering these practices, you build trust, improve decision making, and ultimately contribute to advancing healthcare. Now let's shift gears and go to the second section of this tutorial about the ethical academic writing begins with authorship transparency. In scientific and medical publications, authorship is not just about credit, it is about accountability. Each author must meet established criteria such as contributing significantly to study design, data interpretation, or manuscript drafting. Journals often follow the International Committee of Medical Journal Editors (ACMJE) guidelines to define roles. Listing honorary authors or omitting legitimate contributors undermines trust and damages credibility. Transparency also applies to data presentation. Writers must ensure all relevant findings, both positive and negative, are reported clearly. Selective reporting may seem tempting, especially when results do not favor a drug or intervention, but it erodes scientific integrity and may even carry legal consequences. Plagiarism avoidance is another cornerstone of ethical writing. Even unintentional plagiarism, such as reusing parts of previous submissions without proper citation, can damage reputations and delay regulatory approvals. Proper referencing using AMA, Vancouver, or APA style is essential. Tools like Turnitin and Authenticate can help identify overlap, but ethics begins with intent. Ethical writing also means crafting original interpretations. Even when describing standard methodologies or referencing widely used guidelines, paraphrasing and attribution are mandatory. By being transparent about authorship and sources, you create documents that demonstrate integrity, strengthen peer trust, and meet global publication standards. In a field where credibility is everything, transparency is not optional. It is the foundation of professional medical communication. Let's also highlight a big challenge because conflicts of interest, COI, are unavoidable in a highly collaborative, industry-driven field like pharma and healthcare, but how they are handled defines credibility. A conflict of interest occurs when a personal or financial relationship could influence or appear to influence scientific judgment. Examples include stock ownership, consulting fees, speaker honoraria, or close professional ties with research sponsors. Ethical medical writing requires full disclosure of all COIs. Most journals, medical congresses, and regulatory bodies have strict requirements, often using standardized disclosure forms. These statements may feel repetitive, but they are critical for ensuring transparency. A manuscript that openly lists its funding sources or investigator relationships is far more trustworthy than one that omits them. Conflicts don't automatically disqualify research. Rather, undisclosed conflicts damage credibility and can lead to retractions, regulatory scrutiny, or legal action. For example, an investigator publishing favorable trial results while failing to disclose their advisory board role for the sponsoring company risks both their reputation and the validity of the work. Writers play a key role in managing this risk. If you are drafting a manuscript or regulatory document, insist on collecting COI disclosures from all contributors early. When in doubt, disclose. It is always better to be transparent than to appear deceptive. Including COI statements not only fulfills compliance obligations, but also demonstrates professionalism. Trust in scientific writing depends on integrity, and clear disclosure is one of the simplest ways to uphold that standard. So let's agree that no discussion of ethical writing is complete without regulatory and compliance considerations. Medical and pharmaceutical writing operates under strict frameworks designed to ensure accuracy, patient safety, and data integrity. For instance, documents like clinical study reports, CSRs, or investigators' brochures must comply with ICH E3 guidelines, while submissions to the FDA or EMA require adherence to specific formatting and data presentation standards. Good publication practice guidelines provide a roadmap for ethical communication of company-sponsored research, ensuring that publications accurately reflect study findings and that no ghostwriting or hidden authorship occurs. This protects both organizations and authors from ethical and legal challenges. Compliance also has legal implications. Regulatory authorities view medical documents as formal records, meaning errors or omissions can delay approvals, trigger inspections, or result in fines. Even minor formatting inconsistencies can raise questions about data quality. A best practice is to ensure traceability and documentation integrity. Every claim in a regulatory document should be traceable to source data. Metadata, audit trails, and reference management systems like EndNote or Zotero help maintain this rigor. Additionally, implementing SOPs, standard operating procedures, for writing, reviewing, and archiving documents ensures organizational consistency. In essence, compliance isn't just about following rules, it's about safeguarding patients and maintaining industry trust. Ethical writing demonstrates accountability, while regulatory rigor ensures that scientific communication meets the highest global standards. Together, these principles help writers serve as guardians of both science and integrity. Now, let's bring these principles to life with a real-world example. Imagine a clinical trial report where a senior executive's name is added as an author, despite having no role in study design, data interpretation, or manuscript drafting. This practice, known as honorary authorship, is unethical because it misrepresents contributions and shifts accountability. If issues arise later, such as data discrepancies, that person would be unfairly linked to work they didn't perform. Following ICMJE authorship criteria would prevent this, ensuring only those with significant involvement are credited. Another scenario involves unintentional plagiarism. A medical writer drafting a literature review may reuse text from a previous manuscript written for a different client, thinking it's acceptable because they authored it. However, this is still self-plagiarism and can harm credibility, delay journal acceptance, or result in corrections. Proper paraphrasing and referencing, even for self-authored work, is a professional expectation. These examples highlight why transparency and citation integrity matter. Ethical practices such as clear contribution records, citation management tools, and internal review processes protect writers from reputational and legal consequences. Even honest mistakes can appear deceptive if not addressed early. The takeaway is simple. Authenticity in authorship and meticulous referencing is more than a rule. It's a reflection of your professionalism. By prioritizing ethics at every stage of writing, you safeguard both your career and the reputation of the organizations you represent. Consider another scenario where a principal investigator publishes trial results favoring a drug but fails to disclose that they are a paid consultant for the sponsoring company. Even if the study was conducted with integrity, this omission creates doubt about bias, potentially leading to retraction of the publication and reputational harm for all parties. Disclosure statements could have prevented this situation by showing transparency, even if a potential conflict existed. Another example involves a conference presentation. Imagine a speaker who highlights the benefits of a new medical device without revealing that their lab received significant funding from the manufacturer. If the audience later discovers this link, trust in both the speaker and their work diminishes, regardless of the study's scientific merit. In some regions, failure to disclose conflicts may even breach legal or regulatory requirements. The lesson here is that conflicts of interest don't discredit research. Lack of disclosure does. Transparency allows readers and reviewers to evaluate findings with full context. Writing teams should collect disclosures early in manuscript preparation, use standardized forms, and update them regularly. Ethical writing is a protective shield, ensuring your work withstands scrutiny. In a regulated industry, these practices not only maintain credibility, but also build confidence among peers, patients, and decision makers. By openly addressing conflicts, you demonstrate integrity, which is invaluable in healthcare and pharmaceutical communication. Before we close, let's take a step back and connect the principles of medical writing to the four ethical principles of healthcare: autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, and justice. While these are often discussed in clinical decision-making, they are just as relevant to scientific communication. Autonomy reminds us to provide clear, transparent information so readers, whether regulators, healthcare professionals, or patients, can make informed decisions. Medical writing that hides data or omits disclosures limits autonomy by preventing informed choice. Beneficence is about acting in the best interest of others. Writing that is accurate, well-structured, and accessible serves the greater good, helping decision makers, practitioners, and patients benefit from trustworthy science. Non-maleficence, or do no harm, extends beyond clinical care. Misleading abstracts, poorly explained safety data, or incomplete reporting can cause real-world harm if decisions are made based on flawed communication. Writers carry a responsibility to prevent harm through meticulous accuracy. Finally, justice reminds us of fairness. Whether you are attributing authorship correctly, ensuring representation in data, or communicating study results openly, justice means respecting every contributor and every patient whose participation made the research possible. In this course, we have an entire dedicated tutorial on these four principles of healthcare ethics, exploring them deeply in the context of medical research and decision-making. Linking writing practices back to these core principles ensures that our work doesn't just meet regulatory expectations, but also reflects the moral foundation of medicine. Ladies and gentlemen, we've now covered the language, style, and ethics of academic medical writing, giving you tools to communicate science with clarity, precision, and integrity. From understanding the power of active voice to maintaining objectivity, and from avoiding plagiarism to managing conflicts of interest, you've seen that effective writing is much more than technical skill. It's an ethical responsibility. Every report, manuscript, and regulatory submission carries weight. Your writing can influence approvals, guide clinical practice, and even shape public trust in science. By applying these principles, you don't just create well-written documents. You become a guardian of credibility in the pharmaceutical and healthcare ecosystem. As you continue through this course, keep these lessons in mind. Explore our detailed tutorial on healthcare ethics, revisit best practices for scientific communication, and challenge yourself to see writing not as a box to tick, but as a strategic tool for advancing medicine. Strong, ethical writing amplifies your expertise, strengthens your reputation, and ultimately supports better patient outcomes. Thank you for dedicating time to sharpen this critical skill. Let's continue building excellence together, one clear, ethical, and impactful document at a time. Thank you and see you next time.